Take a breath. Yeah, right there. Welcome to Take That Truth and Walk With It with Reverend Rich P., the podcast where real life meets real spirit. This isn't just talk. This is practical spirituality. This is faith in action. We're diving into the moments you live every day, the wins, the struggles, the how did I even get here seasons, and pulling the truth out of them. Not the polished truth, the real truth, the kind you can actually use. So whether you're on your way to work, sitting in your car trying to get your mind right, or just looking for a word that hits different, you're in the right place. Because here's the deal, you already have what you need. We're just here to remind you. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Take That Truth and Walk With It with Rev Rich P. I'm so grateful you joined me here today. I want to begin with a simple question. When was the last time you looked at someone else's life and wondered why theirs seems to be moving faster than yours? You know, maybe it was happening while you were scrolling on social media. Maybe it happened at a family gathering. Maybe someone got the promotion you wanted. Maybe someone announced an engagement, bought a house, started a business, retired comfortably, or celebrated a milestone you've been praying for. And without realizing it, our mind begins to make comparisons. They're farther along, they're doing better, they must have something I don't. I've been there. If I'm honest, comparison has visited my life more than once. Even now, as I'm trying to move from an employee mindset of being an employee for over 40 plus years to being more of an entrepreneur that I can spend more time with my family and maybe even make more money as an entrepreneur. The interesting thing about a comparison is that it rarely introduces itself as comparison. It often sounds like discouragement. Sometimes it's self-doubt. Sometimes it quietly whispers that we're behind. And in today's conversation is about recognizing that voice and choosing a healthier one because your life has tremendous value. Your journey has meaning and your story deserves attention. So let's walk this out together. So we're living in a world where everyone has a highlight reel, a highlight reel. Every day we're surrounded by carefully selected moments. So people are posting vacations, promotions, perfect family photos, business success, fitness transformations, new relationships, dream homes, luxury cars, followers, likes, views. And none of those things are wrong. They simply represent moments. The challenge begins when our mind compares someone else's best moment with our ordinary Tuesday afternoon. And that's not a fair comparison. Social media has made comparison available 24 hours a day. Previous generations compared themselves to neighbors. Today we compare ourselves to millions of people we have never met. That changed the emotional landscape. It becomes easy to believe that everyone else has a life that has been figured out. Meanwhile, many people are carrying the same struggles that never appear in the photographs. I've learned that everyone has a story. Everyone carries victories. Everyone carries disappointments. Everyone is growing somewhere. And remember that helps me extend compassion instead of comparison. So when we look at these photos, these videos, we like to compare ourselves to these people. And as, we realize it is just a moment. It's a happy moment. Be happy for them. And instead of comparing ourselves to them, have compassion because we never know what's happening past that moment or prior to that moment. Many of you know if you've been listening to my podcast or been on my website or my Facebook, I've worn a lot of hats throughout my life. I worked in technology, I've served churches, I've coached people, I've built websites, I've hosted radio stations, I started podcasts, I've written journals, I've experienced seasons where everything seems to move forward. But I've also experienced seasons where the doors closed unexpectedly. There were moments when I questioned my direction, moments when I wondered if I had fallen behind. Then something shifted. I stopped asking, why isn't my life looking like theirs? I started to ask myself, what is God inviting me to become during this season? That question brought peace into my heart. It brought peace to my mind because my attention then moved away from trying to compare myself to someone else's timeline and returned to my own journey. I'm sure you've heard this a lot of times from me when I talk to people whether I'm speaking at a church or speaking online, is that I need you to be the best you for me, and I need to be the best me for you. And the only way I can be the best me, the only way you can be the best you, is focusing on our own journeys and not trying to compare ourselves, taking it step by step. So again, God has never asked me to become someone else. God continues inviting me to become more fully myself. And that realization began to change everything for me. So when I talk about unity teachings, unity teaches that each person is in a unique expression of divine life. And I love that idea because it reminds me that comparison becomes unnecessary when I remember who I am. Think about the nature for a moment. An oak tree doesn't compete with a sunflower. A river doesn't compare itself to a mountain. Every part of creation contributes something unique. Human beings often forget that. We begin measuring our values by accomplishments, income, appearances, popularity, or recognition. Meanwhile, our greatest contribution may be something much deeper. It could be our kindness that we share, the compassion we have, the faithfulness that we show in our disciplines, our generosity when even we question how we can do it, our willingness to encourage another person. Jesus never invited people into competition. He invited people into purpose. He met fishermen where they were. He met tax collectors where they were. He met ordinary people living ordinary lives. He saw possibilities. And that's how I believe God still sees us today, not as competitors, but as unique expressions of love. When I remember that, I stop asking whether I'm ahead or behind. I begin asking whether I'm growing. Growth is a beautiful goal. Growth has no expiration date. Growth belongs to every season of life. And one of the things we want to remember, even though sometimes it sounds a little morbid, is, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I've also heard my mentor say that there are people out there who are 21 and 22 years old who are dead from the neck up because they believe this is all life can be when we have so much. And we spend so much time comparing ourselves to other people, we don't see the miracles in our own lives. So we need to move from that space and move into knowing that we are perfectly created and we are an individualized expression of the divine. God in Genesis has been said that we were made in their images. Now we look at each other, we know that it's not the physical, so obviously it's the divine. And if the divine was pronounced good, then why would we think we're anything else? Unity's teaching is that in principle number 2 out of the 5 principles is that we are inherently good because we are an expression of the good. So how do we move this into more of a practicing spirituality? How do we stop comparing? So I've been practicing something that's helped me tremendously. Whenever I notice comparison showing up, I pause. Then I ask myself 3 questions. The first question is, what am I grateful for today? When we focus on that gratitude, when we focus away from the lack that we perceive because of the comparison we practice gratitude in place of that, we find ourselves in a place that realize that what we thought we didn't have, we are truly abundant in. I love to compare it to the story of Elijah and the widow. Because everybody thinks that when the widow goes, he says, go get all the oil, get all the jars, and let's fill the oil. And she's able to fill the oil and overflow it. Everybody looks at it as a miracle. I look at it as, what if The miracle wasn't the physical form of the oil, but the miracle was the change in her perspective to be more into going into the home and finding out that, like most of us Latinos and even some of my African American parents, we had jars of oil that we didn't want to throw away, that she went ahead and found all that oil. And when she collected it into these vessels, she found she had more than enough and was able to sell them and do what she needed to do. If we do the same thing in our lives, do we not find that we are abundant? And it may not be abundant in all areas, but we are abundant in many areas. Question number 2. Is simple. What progress have I made that I haven't celebrated? See, we tend to do things and, somebody calls us, hey, I'm pregnant, and we're celebrating them. Hey, I just got a new job. Let's celebrate them. Hey, I just did this. Let's celebrate them. But when was the last time that you celebrated yourself? And I'll even take it a step further. Nothing wrong with thanking God for the things that are beautiful in your life right now. But when was the last time you thanked yourself for the action you took that got you to that place? Because once you do that and start to celebrate every little thing that you are working on, everything that you do, when you start to realize that though divine inspiration has given you the idea does nothing unless you take the action. So thanking God, thanking Spirit, thanking Universe is a wonderful thing. But when was the last time you thanked yourself? And then the third question is, what opportunity is already in front of me? See, that question is going to move you into action because there are things being unfolded in front of you that you may not be sure or not even know why it's happening, but it's happening. And get me wrong, I've been there. I've gotten those opportunities and been scared to move forward. But a lot of those opportunities still live on my heart, which means that they're in a file cabinet somewhere in my mind going, I must take action behind this, whether it fails or not, because if I go in with the expectation of failure, it's going to fail. But if I go in with the expectation of this is the next step, as Martin Luther King says, I don't have to see the top of the stairs to know that I got to take that next step, because that next step may take me in the same direction. That next step may take me to another direction. And each time, if I continue to live in that divine inspired life and allow myself to not be so scared, I can move forward. So when we ask ourselves these 3 questions, we stop measuring our lives against someone else's and begin to participate in our own lives. I've learned to celebrate other people's victories. I used to, when I wanted to be a speaker, I'd watch people who like, Rich, remember when I was afraid to speak in front of a room? And now they're traveling the world speaking. And I'm like, what happened to me? Now I celebrate them. Because celebration opens my heart. And when my heart is open, I'm willing to do more. I then change my perspective that my speaking is not just chasing a dollar or whatever. It is because I'm in service to so many people. Someone else's success does not reduce what is possible for me or you. Life isn't a race with limited winners. There is room for all of us to grow. There is room for all of us to contribute. There is room for all of us to flourish. And that perspective, especially in this month, creates freedom. It opens us up to a freedom where we're not worried about comparing ourselves to anyone, but we're free to live, to grow, to serve, and celebrate those things within ourselves. So let's go ahead and begin the walk here. So what am I practicing this week? And I hope that you'll join me. When you catch yourself measuring your life against somebody else's, pause, take a breath, then remind yourself, My story deserves my attention. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. Write down one way you've grown during the last year. Because you know what? You have done the growing. I can tell you many areas where I've gotten better. But a lot of times we skip that to look at what somebody else has done. So I want you to write down one way you've grown during this past year, and then write down one step you can take this week. And then keep your eyes on your own path. Don't worry about everybody else. You happen to be on social media and, oh my God, look, this family went to blank. Great. Celebrate. Nice. You got to see this. But keep your eyes on your own path, because nobody else can live the life God has entrusted in you. So with that being said, I am so grateful you're here with me. So let's take a moment and just join me in affirmative prayer here. If you feel so moved, you can go ahead and close your eyes. If you're driving while you're listening to this, don't do that. Just relax your eyes on the road. But if you are comfortable, close your eyes, or at least a soft gaze downward. And divine love, thank you for creating each of us with purpose. Help me celebrate the life you have given me. Strengthen my ability to recognize growth within my own journey. Fill my heart with gratitude. Teach me to celebrate the successes of others while remaining faithful to the path unfolding before me. May I live with confidence, compassion, and joy. May I remember that I am enough exactly where I begin, and that every step forward has value. Thank you for walking beside me every day. And we affirm this by saying it is done, and so shall it be, and so we let it be. And we affirm it again with an amen and ashe. So thank you for spending this time with me. If today's conversation encouraged you, share it with someone who may need a reminder that their story matters. And you can connect with me at revrichp.com. And if you're ready to continue your journey of healing, gratitude, forgiveness, or intentional living, check out the Take That Truth and Walk With It journal experience. It's designed to help you move from inspiration to transformation one day at a time. Until next week, take that truth and walk with it. I'm Rev Rich P, and I wish you peace and blessings.
Take a breath. Let that settle in. Now, don't just hear it, walk it. Because truth isn't something you collect, it's something you live. And the moment you start applying it, everything begins to shift. If something spoke to you today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, pass it on, be the light in somebody else's moment. And if you're ready to go deeper, more tools, more truth, more ways to live this thing out in real time, head over to revrichp.com. That's where we keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay grounded, stay intentional, and keep showing up as who you already are. Take that truth and walk with it. Peace and blessing.